What's wrong with it?
No, nothing. The software sends the information to the brain. Then the brain relates this to the AI module.
Yeah, a year
And
later.
our computers finished the job. Raymond, you wanted a man inside a machine, and that's what you've got. But the human element will always be present. Fear, instinct, bias, compassion, they will always interfere with the system.
Okay, but Dad, I've got to give the American people something they can root for, something aspirational, right? They have to believe in this thing. Pretty good. That's not, I don't know how to sell okay. So I don't care how you do it. I'm asking you, come on, can you help me? Just get him to do that.
Him to do that.
It's a machine.
I know, but it's a man inside a machine.
No, that's a man inside a machine, right there!
And his life depends on it, and the future of Omnicorp depends on it, so get your ass back to China and get it fixed. I don't care how you do it, just go do it.
And that was a clip from Robocop. I'm delighted to say we've been joined by one of its stars, Gary Oldman, who's on the show again. Hello, Gary.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very good. Good afternoon. Thanks very much indeed for your time. Tell us about... I was about to call it a remake, but I'm not... Which it kind of is, and it's not really a I don't know. You sort of started again. Just explain the story here.
Well, we've tried to capture some of the spirit or the essence of the first one. I think it's fair to call it a remake.
Okay.
But of all the movies that they could have remade, this one to me made the most sense. I thought that it could take a remake. The first one being very much a sort of a dark vision of the future, very sort of fantastical, more science fiction. In the sort of in the time since, technologically, we've sort of caught up with it. And oddly, it's more science fact than it is science fiction with what's happening in the world and where we've come on with the technology and sort of robotic engineering, and so it made sense to me. It's very topical, very current.
So the year is 2028. You work for Omnicorp. Any company that's going to be has a name like Omnicorp, you know it's going to be bad people,
bit dodgy,
doing bad things. And you, so you're Dr. Norton. Are you like a neuroengineer? I mean,
yeah, you could say that.
Yes.
He's sort of a neurosurgeon, sort of bionic engineer, and he works for Omnicorp, and he's in a sort of actually he heads research, and. Like a lot of researchers, you know, it's experimentation. You fail, you go back to the drawing board and you start again, and there's no real clock ticking. Once he is involved in the sort of Robocop project, he suddenly finds himself in a sort of corporate world that really where, you know, that their only concern is to make a buck. So he's ethically suddenly very sort of compromised because he has to get a product on the street. They have a release date and they don't care that this robot man is malfunctioning. And so he's sort of he's ethically very up against the wall, very challenged.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, we see you doing lots of good things, though, Gary. I mean, your character is working with prosthetics and making people's lives better. And you have to say to your bosses, "I'm sorry, you promised I wouldn't have to do any of this kind of stuff." So what is it that spins you round into making this man with a huge gun?
It's the promise of unlimited funding. For the research. And he doesn't really, honestly, truly know quite what he's getting into. I mean, it is very sort of uncharted water. He is, to some extent, kind of making it up as he's going along. And, of course, underestimates Raymond Sellers, who's played by Michael Keaton. He underestimates his boss. He sort of signs his soul away to the devil and doesn't realize it, and he thinks he knows, he can trust this man, and obviously he can't. So the nice thing about this, or the sort of character arc for me playing it, was that it does redeem himself, and there is a sort of a committee hearing at the end of the movie, and he apologizes and takes responsibility for what he did, which I think currently in this day and age, it's a rare commodity.
He has your character has a pretty complex relationship with your creation with Robocop, which is made people sort of make that comparison with Frankenstein, which sort of works, doesn't it? I mean, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I'm completely. I think I'm not sure where the germ of the idea for the original came from, but I mean, you know, when I saw the movie in '87, whenever it first came out, I mean, that's what I thought. I thought, oh well, it's like the Frankenstein story, only it's a robot, or a man-machine, rather than a sort of reanimated tissue. Now it's nuts and bolts. But I thought that, you know, that must have been, maybe, I'm sure that was the idea. I'm sure that was the idea behind the original. You know, let's make Frankenstein, but make him a robot.
And you were suggesting at the beginning, you know, the fact that this plays into sort of, the modern news agenda, and of course it is very much part of the drone conversation and the disquiet which some people have about the use of drones in warfare, and that seems to be at the heart of the message, really.
Well, yeah, you've got these questions of freedom of choice. You've also got this argument, this debate at the moment of you know, security, the world's safety versus liberty, and how much of that will be forcibly taken away from us. You have the drone conversation. They're now already talking about putting, you know, I think when you next see boots on the ground, when they talk about boots on the ground, I think these may well end up being robotic boots. So they're already discussing putting robots into battle. And the drone debate, which were we hadn't even thought of it when we saw Robocop 1.
Yes.
And this is partly Jose, the director. I mean, you know, I'm always fascinated with these sort of mavericks or outsiders, Europeans, South Americans, who come in and then sort of tinker with their American, you know, the Hollywood pop culture. So you've got, for instance, Alfonso Cuarón, who comes in and does Harry Potter. You've got Thomas Alfredson, who comes in and does Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which is quintessentially sort of English, but made by a Swede. A Mexican making Harry Potter, and now you have a Brazilian who is making a sort of an American action movie. So he's smuggled some really interesting ideas in and disguised them. It's actually really, I think, a political movie wrapped up in it's sort of packaged as an action thriller. But I mean, and even Samuel Jackson's character, I mean, the way he sort of looks at the cynicism of the media. And
he sort of plays I guess a pastiche maybe of a Fox TV host campaigning in favour of robots.
Yeah, I guess he's a little touch of Rush Limbaugh.
Yes,
a little bit.
Just a little bit of that. And as when you came on the show last time, which was for Tinker Tailor, you started a very long-running debate when Mark asked you, Mark said, this isn't about spies, is it? And then you said, no, it's not. And then Mark was then off on, well, and Jaws isn't about a shark either. It's about infidelity and so on. So if the question is, so what is Robocop actually about? It's not about robots or cops. It's about politics, really.
Yeah, and it's about that debate of, I think, we feel that we're being completely overrun. I certainly feel, coming from an era that was sort of analog. Vinyl records, sort of crackling in the plastic as you took them out, and listening to the sort of radio. And now we're in this sort of technological age where we feel that machines are sort of taking over and, running our lives. We're so sort of dependent on them now.
And I haven't mentioned Joel Kinnaman, who plays Alex Murphy, who is Robocop. Had you worked with him before? I think we'd seen him in the is it the American
Killing.
version of The Killing?
Yeah, he's wonderful in that. Well, that's where I first discovered him. I was on a long transatlantic flight, and I watched The Killing, the entire first episode back to back. I think it was about 8 hours.
The whole of the series.
I should have been sleeping, but I got so sort of hooked on it, and watched one episode after the other, sort of a marathon viewing. But he's a great talent. I think he does a fantastic job in the film. I think it's no mean feat to kind of sort of pull that off. And and he's a lovely guy to boot. So bless him, he spent hours and hours and hours, 12 hours a day in that outfit, and I never ever heard him complain once.
And of course, what's interesting, it goes back to the Frankenstein conversation, Gary, is that it's unlike. I mean, he's not a superhero because you might want to be a superhero, but no one is going to want to be.
No,
Robocop.
he's not a superhero.
No.
I think it's a sort of a real drama, tragic. It's tragedy. No one would want to be. You know, kids might want to be Batman because of the cape and the gadgets. Superman can fly, but no, I don't think anyone will want to be Robocop. I mean, if anything, if it had a message, I would say let's not mess too much in God's workshop. Don't tinker around too much.
And we mentioned Joel Kinnaman. You're re-teaming with him and your Tinker Tailor co-star Tom Hardy with Child 44, which is a wonderful, wonderful book, which we discussed on the programme a few years ago. But it's a terrific story. Yeah,
it's a great story. That's directed by Daniel Espinosa. Tom Hardy. It's my 4th movie with Tom, and I had no scenes with Joel, but we connected. We hooked up there in Prague, which was where we shot, doubling for the Soviet Union. Yeah,
that's very good.
Promises to be a good one.
And before you leave us, Gary, I think I'm right in saying you never worked with Philip Seymour Hoffman, but he was very much an actor's actor. Was he someone whose work you admired?
Yeah, deeply. Yeah. I think it's a profound loss. Being someone with family, kids, and that's where my mind goes. That. How are they, I mean, dead is dead, but what the family going to do? That's the real tragedy. I'm sure he didn't mean to commit suicide. I'm sure it was an accidental, as it was with Heath Ledger. Yes. It's now we're reading that they cut the stuff with some very powerful painkiller. But I wouldn't want. Who would want to be in his shoes? He must have been in absolute abject misery to be in that place, and it's a loss to the family and to us who love great acting.
Yes, an extraordinary actor.
Yeah.
Gary Oldman, we appreciate your time with us this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Alrighty.